Welcome to eCommerce Australia. This one was another great one, if I do say so myself. Had a fantastic chat with Jordana Macfarlane, who was again awarded a position in the top 50 people in e-commerce for 2024. Jordana has spent time with some of the best brands in the space, including head of e-commerce for Incu and global senior brand manager at Rhino Rack. So a rock star in the industry. Some really great insights in this episode. A couple of quick announcements from me before we get into the episode, including announcing our first ever live event in 2025. We're partnering up with Retail Global and heading to Perth for a big retail e-com night, Thursday the 6th of March. Leave a comment on the show notes and I'll send you the link to register your interest. But March the 6th, keep it free if you're in the great state of Western Australia. Secondly and lastly, the VIP list, looking to open up the lines of communication so I can improve the podcast in 2025. Would love your feedback. I've included a sign-up link in the podcast show notes. I'll be sending out a survey for the listeners and people that are on that list already. Would really value your feedback, and let's make 2025 the best year that we can, the most profitable and the most amount of fun in that e-com space. Hope you enjoy the episode with Jordana. Do you listen to many podcasts? What do you listen to? Or do you try and get away from the whole e-com thing? Yeah.
Don't, to be honest. My partner's also in the industry. He's a CMO, ex-Booktopia, so we talk shop all the time. And he listens to a lot, and then I feel like we just end up talking about that as well. So to be honest, if I'm in the car, I like to just like switch off, or if I have that time, just take it back. I feel like, especially this industry, it's such a collaborative and community environment that we're always with each other. We're always talking about what's happening and what's working and who's doing what well. So sometimes it can be a lot, and it's, nice to be able to switch off from that.
Exactly. Do you listen to one of the other podcasts I'm like looking a lot into is that Alex Cooper?
Yep.
Not obviously sort of not my, I'm not her target audience or demographic, but she's built a pretty big empire relatively quickly.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive with the sort of the suite of podcasts that she has. So, I always wonder whether and I think a lot of it's like even myself, sometimes you just want to stop talking SEO or e-com or whatever. And you listen to something completely different. So
yeah, I feel that's definitely it. If we do listen to something, or if I do listen to something, it's more sort of, mind and body and wellness, and, how we, sort of find that balance that everybody talks about, and there's no secret sauce to it. But, that's probably where I find motivation outside of the e-com world is, how are we looking after ourselves and what does that look like? And, getting some really good advice of, we get so caught up sometimes, we're moving so fast and we're trying to be really social and we're trying to make everybody else happy. And, sometimes along the way, I think we can kind of lose ourselves and lose perspective of what's important to us and how we want to spend our time.
Yeah, interesting. So favorite holiday destination, obviously, as I was doing a little bit of research, I come across your socials and seeing that you're at Bali. Was that be a favorite holiday destination, or do you have somewhere else?
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. I mean, Bali is very sentimental to me. I actually met my partner in Bali 13 years ago.
Nice. How did that happen? Was that, were you both on holiday there or at a bar? Okay, yeah.
No, we were actually both living there. I was living there. I'd left a 15-year career in fashion and had started my own beauty business and was manufacturing organic body scrubs and candles out of Bali. So I moved really only for 6 months to kind of set the business up, and fell in love with it that I just stayed a lot longer. My partner was over there also. He had a digital agency at the time and another business, and yeah, we met. Sort of digital nomads and entrepreneurs kind of living the dream in Bali.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like, I don't know if I'm going to say it sounds common. That sounds a bit not nice, but yeah, that's awesome. And it's good that I guess e-commerce and even digital agencies, you can do that. One of the jobs that you can actually work remotely from quite well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely up on the list. However, outside of going back really recently. I haven't been back in 7 years. So, you know, when we choose to, I guess, have a family holiday, we've gone to Fiji quite a lot. My partner loves diving. As a family, we love snorkeling and we love the water and being in nature. So we've just found, you know, it's a really great destination to kind of fulfill everybody's needs in the family, and everyone feels like they've had a holiday, which is great.
Yeah, fantastic. I've not been, but I'll definitely put that one on the list.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Last book read.
The Well Garden Mind by Sue Stewart Smith. So really interesting. One of the things, you know, that prompted us or my family to move out to Avalon is that we love nature and we love being by the water. And, you know, the book is all about how, you know, nature can actually really support our well-being and mental health, and how just getting outside and doing some gardening or being in nature can really support us. And so it's been a bit of a journey, I guess, for me, but also, you know, for my family, is how do we find that balance? Like I said before, and we, you know, we lived in a city for a long time, probably for about 8 years, and working in a very fast-paced environment. You know, I think we just got to a point where we're like, how far have we come from, you know, our days in Bali and being surrounded by nature and really having, you know, a lot of freedom and balance to kind of just doing this 9 to 5, like clock in, clock out, and kind of turning over, school drop off, school pick up. So yeah, the book was recommended to me by a really beautiful friend who works in the wellness industry. And yeah, it's been a really great book to read. And I actually just finished it when I was in Bali.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, it sounds great, and I can completely relate with the water. You know, one of my favorite things of all time, or every week, I go and like do an open water swim in the bay here in Melbourne.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's definitely not like the beaches you guys have in Sydney, but you know, it does, for whatever reason, the water and the bay certainly makes you just quite grateful of you know, being able to live in a pretty good country. Although the
Yeah.
politicians are doing their best, but that's another subject. But you know, you got your health, you got your community, you got your friends, and you know, I don't know, it just seems to make you grateful. There's something about the water.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely, you know, what we've found. We're really lucky. We live, you know, the beach is at the end of our street. There's a beautiful headland. There's a coffee cart up there. So, you know,
Nice.
almost every morning we walk up as a family and have a coffee. Over the last few months, we've seen the whales migrate. So we've been watching them every day. And yeah, it's this moment of complete gratitude, because you sit there and you just really, you know, think about how lucky you are to live in such a beautiful place. And, you know, it's a nice reminder of, you know, being in a good community, and our son sees all his friends and we see all the parents, and it's this kind of a very social event every morning. But yeah, it's nice, and it's yeah, definitely something to be grateful for. And, you know, when I've talked about balance before, it definitely helps us find that balance of, you know, splitting our work life to our family life, and yeah, making sure that our son is outdoors as much as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Fantastic. Good to hear that. Favorite quote that do you live by a certain motto or quote, or is there one from the book that resonates?
Not one from the book, but there is one, and it says, "In a world that isn't always authentic, stay close to people that allow you to be you." And I think it really resonates with me because, you know, as we get older, you know, we obviously learn a lot along the way, but it's so hard to, you know, stay true to who we are and what's important to us, and hold our values. And, you know, we can definitely get sucked into different groups and different environments. And sometimes we don't really notice that we're making a choice. We're just kind of, you know, we're running so fast. So for me, it's a nice reminder to just sometimes stop and really think about, you know, the people that we've got in our lives. And that can be, you know, family, friends, our work colleagues. You know, do they hold the same values as us, and do they allow us to really be who we want to be? And I think that's really important. And also, you know, as I'm watching my 10-year-old grow up, it's also been a lesson, you know, for him to be proud of who he is, and for us to help, you know, him find out who he wants to be, and make sure that he's, you know, in this environment where he feels like he can be himself.
Yep. Yeah, fantastic. That's a great answer. No, I love that. It's definitely inspiring. What does he want to be when he grows up? Does that change week to week?
Change, yeah, it definitely does change. I'd say at this point he absolutely has no idea, but I think knowing, you know, my partner's personality traits and mine, he'll definitely have a very exciting life, and he'll travel, he'll do something great and amazing. And I think he's just one of our fears, obviously, moving out here a year ago, was that we were uprooting his school life and his friends, and we don't have family out here. We were really going to change a lot for him, but he's just such a confident person. He made friends straight away, and he's really, fallen in love with the community. And I think
Awesome.
that's really nice to see. And I think as long as he keeps continuing down that path, he'll find what he wants to do.
Yeah, that's so good to hear that.
Yeah.
And so you've probably answered this last question before we get into some of the e-com stuff, but what does a typical weekend include? It sounds like coffee, water, activities outdoors.
Coffee, water, skate park. My son's addicted to the skate park. So yeah, look, it really is just being outside, and we're really fortunate that, we've got a beautiful garden and a pool in the backyard, and, we are outside all the time. And, if he's not, walking down to the skate park to meet some friends, we're walking to the headland, or we're popping down into the town to get a coffee and to have a wander around. So yeah, we definitely like to plan some family hikes, but that can be challenging with time and things like that. But yeah, we're super fortunate that we've got a lot of nature around us, and it's at our back door really, so we can just pop outside and enjoy it.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess, given your roles that you've had over the years, and as you mentioned, your partner's also in that sort of similar industry, it's a lot of screen time. So, I
It's a
guess
lot.
getting away from that is that balance that you're seeking always.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of a rule that we really tried to embed in the family as well. So, we don't give our son screen time until after lunch. And, it's really important for us to, get up and get outside in the morning on the weekends. And, there's a time and place for all of it. Absolutely. And, he still loves the PlayStation, and we don't want to take that away from him. But yeah, I think it's really healthy for us as well, because we are either on a computer or a phone constantly. So yeah, to just
Yeah.
remind ourselves to be outside is a good one.
Yeah, another question that wasn't on the pre-arranged questions that I sent through, but given he's 10,
Mm.
and there's that new Albanese's trying to get that new bill in around social media, being banned from anyone up to 16. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I do actually. I think it's a hard one. I don't think it's black and white,
Yeah.
but I think more and more what we are, definitely what we see or what we hear is that the bullying within schools and within kids has definitely started a lot younger. And I think that definitely has been contributed to, the fact that they do have access to social media and YouTube and things like this. Personally, I don't think it's super healthy. Even as an adult, you can be on social media and scrolling, and you can see things that maybe don't make you feel great, or make you feel insecure about yourself, but as adults, we at least know how to handle that a little bit better. As kids, I think they're just not equipped for that. So, once they get access to WhatsApp and Snapchat and things like that, they really can just, I guess, have a little bit too much freedom.
Mm.
So I think it's hard. I don't know that, is 16 the right age to make them wait? I don't know. But I think definitely, for a 10-year-old and for our son, he doesn't have access to social media. He, has a phone that has all the privacy locks. And the only reason we actually gave him a phone was because he rides to school and he rides home. And we wanted, if he needed us or something happened, he could get in touch with us. Yeah, it's a really difficult one, but we've been really fortunate that, we haven't been affected by it. But I do know families who have got, 12, 13-year-old girls that have been affected by bullying from social media. So I think it's a delicate topic. And like I said, I just don't think it's black and white, and it's really hard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't have any kids, so it's a bit hard for me to sort of comment other than the fact that on one hand, you do want to teach them like social media is going to be around. So when they turn 16, if they haven't been able to build any sort of skills to understand what it is, it could be quite a shock to them.
Absolutely.
But then on the other hand, you're right, like back in my day, bullying would be at the schoolyard and that's it, and you sort of get away from it. So, yeah, it's a very complex world. I don't know the right answer, but I just thought, yeah, it's interesting to hear your take on that.
Yeah. I think you made a really good point though. You want to educate them, you want them to, know how to handle situations when they come up. But I think that, definitely comes from within the family and the family life. And, how are we supporting them and teaching them, simple things like right from wrong. And, some things we see on social media are just not real. Also teaching them that, people can be mean. People can be really mean. So how do we, handle that? And how do we, I guess, stay true to ourselves and not let it affect us? And, also just, support our friends that might be in one of those situations and stand up for what's right.
Yeah, exactly. And even as adults, we probably can't tell what's real and what's not at the moment with AI rolling through so quickly. So it'd be impossible for them. Anyway, enough of the political kind of conversation. What, in your opinion, given your background, what makes a great e-commerce manager?
I love this question. I think it's such a combination of so many things. And I think resilience would be one of them, adaptability, collaborative. It's a combination of so many different personality traits and, professional traits. I think it's important to remember, no matter what role we're in, is, if we're leading a team, is what example do we want to give them, and to think about what example we want from, a CEO or an executive in the business that we're working for. I think it's really important to build trust with teams, no matter what industry. Obviously, e-com is a very fast-paced industry. And so I think that's where, the resilience really comes in, because we need to be able to adapt, and sometimes we can be strategic, sometimes we need to be tactical, and we just have to be okay with that. And that can be really challenging for some people. So I think that it's really key to just kind of also be aware and understand if that's, a behavior that you can bring to the environment. It's not always an easy environment to be in. I think when we look at the last few years of inflation and retail challenges, and that can definitely create some, I guess, negativity within a workspace. And so it's how to, stay resilient to that and stay motivated and positive, and help our teams also stay the same way.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. And I've got one more question in and around this is, do you think the term e-commerce manager is becoming far too broad? And are we kind of setting the e-commerce manager up to fail a little bit, because there's just so much
Yeah.
involved in e-commerce these days, as opposed to maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where there wasn't so many different platforms and so much different attention being divided?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has become very broad, and I think it's also become very competitive in the market. But it is, it's almost like asking for a unicorn, where you need to be good at SEO, and you need to be good on the technical side, and you need to be good on the creative side and the strategic side and the tactical side. It's just like the list has become longer the last few years. And I think especially, the challenge the retail industry has had sort of post-COVID is that, everybody was moving so fast. Then inflation really affected retail, and consumer behavior changed dramatically. And we're still, I guess, trying to keep our head above water in that sense. And so what's happened is a lot of businesses and teams have kind of scaled back, but then the expectation on roles and people is to do more. And that can be quite hard and quite demanding. And to your point, tech evolves so fast, and there's always new updates to Shopify and Klaviyo and, all the big partners out there, and which is amazing, but it can also be really hard to keep up with. And also from, I guess, when you look at the partner side as well, they're working with so many clients, and that can also be challenging. So yeah, I definitely think that over the last 3 years, at least, it's definitely become, this very hybrid role. Whereas before it definitely would have been split more, digital marketing, e-com, creative, and brand and marketing. Now it's kind of all encompassing in one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the same with, I see roles for digital marketing manager, and I look at the role and I thought, like, geez, that's a that is a tough role, and then you look at what they're paying, and you kind of go, "Geez, I'm not sure if it's worth it." But
Yeah.
I think yeah, and then you've obviously got to lead your team. You've got to be across the data to report up to the board or the CEO, and then external agencies as well. So it's a tough job being an e-commerce manager. There's just so much going on, and especially when everyone's wanting to sort of switch off in December, that's sort of go time for many in that industry as well. But I'm sure that there's heaps that are doing really well. I just see the roles that are being advertised, and I'm like, geez, it's a tough role
It is,
a lot of the
yeah.
time. Let's get on to the next question is how important is building brand in e-commerce? Looking at your background, you've come from, it looks like anyway, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but a very brand heavy kind of roles in some of those e-commerce and retail businesses. How important is building brand when it comes to e-commerce?
I think the simple answer is it very much depends on the e-com business. I think for a lot of them though, and especially the businesses that I've worked with, brand is very important. And when I talk about brand, it's very much built around community and how do we, drive and connect with our community, and that leverages and builds into brand. So definitely for the past few businesses, that's been really key. For some, that's not always the case. So it's about understanding, what your business is and what your brand is, and that's not always necessary. But I think when we look at, especially in the fashion industry, it is important. There's so much competition out there with brands. So understanding what's most important to your customer and your community really drives your brand and your business. And that can be really hard to do. Obviously, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that straightforward. And, you mentioned data before, and as much as, in ecom, we are very data driven. We like to make decisions based off data. There are some instances where, you're not going to get the data to tell you whether it's the right decision for a campaign or for a creative ad. That really needs to come from, almost gut feeling and understanding the brand and the business. So it's definitely a balancing act. But yeah, in my experience, I would say it's been really key for all of my past roles.
Yeah, that's a great answer and really interesting. I think sometimes, you can kind of get away with it early days if you're not building brand, if you're just sort of if you start it up and get going, but especially if your products are a little bit transactional, if you're like Temu and Shein and even Amazon potentially, like if you're not building brand, then you can be a little bit, those brands could easily sort of overtake you if you don't have a strong brand, if it's just a product or something. But that's how it could start out, and then you just need to build that brand. But interesting, maybe like with Rhino Rack, how did Rhino Rack come with building that brand and plugging into that community? Was it sort of events based? Did they really have an investment into that community?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really led by our partnerships and our ambassador and influencer program. Which is quite different to, I guess, a fashion brand when we talk about ambassadors, because it is a community. And for Rhino Rack, it was really about a 4x4 community, but there were also a lot of segments when you look at what Rhino Rack does as a business and the product range that they actually service. It's quite a lot. So, we talked to a few different segments, and one was definitely the four-wheel drive. But then you've got the family traveler, the weekend warrior, the everyday people, like us who just want some roof racks to put a surfboard or something really simple on top, or the kids' bikes on the back. Yeah, look, I think definitely for Rhino Rack, we leveraged a lot of events as well. I was really fortunate to be a part of the Gary Island cleanup earlier in the year, which was very much a 4x4 community. Everyone was camping and, driving along the beach. And it was actually my very first time driving on a beach.
Nice.
Loved it. Can't wait to do it again. It definitely is one thing that I'll miss. But it was really great because it was, people obviously who enjoy the outdoors and enjoy going camping, taking their families camping to these amazing destinations. But the reality was, there was so much rubbish and plastics left over on the island that it really requires you to participate in events like this to kind of clean it up. And that, so pros and cons, obviously. And it was sad to see the amount of rubbish left behind, but also incredibly powerful to see the community get behind such a great initiative. And I think, to be connected to something like that as a brand is so powerful, because I think when we talk about brand and community, we're really talking about trust and loyalty.
Yeah.
That doesn't come easy. You can't buy that. You can't pay for that. That needs to come through building relationships. And so holding, sponsoring events like this really gave the business opportunity to get into the community and be a part of it, and not just, sign it off and add it to the budget line. It was an opportunity to get out there and be a part of that world and, really get behind the initiative, so that when we did talk about it through social or through the website or any of our channels, we could actually talk about it really proudly because we participated and we were a part of it. We didn't just ask someone else to go and do it for us. And I think that message just holds so much power, and that's where you really build trust and loyalty with your community. And that hopefully, turns into customers for the brand, and they'll continue to come back to you for that very reason, because they trust you. And that's incredibly powerful for a retailer, because I think, there is so much competition out there, and, Rhino Rack's not the only one that does roof racks, and, you can definitely get them cheaper and you can get different versions, but it's about understanding why people would want to come to you for that product. And Incu was the same as well. You've got, it's a multi-brand retailer, holds a lot of international designers. You absolutely can get those brands somewhere else. And sometimes you can get them cheaper somewhere else. But customers would choose to come to Incu because it was such a great experience. It was such a great community. If you go into a store, if you've ever been into a store, they're beautifully designed. It's a whole experience in itself, and they really are great at what they do, from a bricks and mortar perspective. They've really built some beautiful stores, the new Gunny stores that they've opened over the last 2 or 3 years as well. But it's just such an experience. And when you've got a community that want to come in because the service is so amazing and the person behind the counter just built this great relationship with you, that's invaluable. So it's different for every business, but for us at Rhino Rack, it was definitely through that ambassador program and events, and, really trying to, lead that from within the team and not just have an external team do that. It very much was, if we're going to speak about it, let's also, sort of put the actions behind the words.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a really good answer, really in-depth answer. And even to touch on one of your points earlier around, like when you're going to do those events, like how there's probably not an ROI that you can attribute, from we're going to invest this and it's going to make this much. It's like, how do you kind of get that over the line? But you've answered it beautifully in the sense that you're actually building that brand. And I really like the way that you sort of wove in there loyalty and authenticity, and then telling that same story and making that connection, because I feel like, a lot of the brands and a lot of the people I've had on this podcast this year, the most common thing that I see is that they know their customers really well. So one of my questions was going to be, and you kind of answered it fairly well already, but how did Rhino Rack, how did Incu, how do you know your customers? How do you get to know their pain points and know why they shop with you? Can you give any examples of sort of ways that you've done that across all of those brands?
Yeah, I think definitely with Rhino Rack, they're still very much on that journey. I think, being a part of these events was a great opportunity for us to be there and to talk to the people that were using the product in the real experiences that we wanted the product to be used, right? So that was, I guess, quite easy for us to, it's a human conversation, right? So you're not relying on data or surveys. It's a face-to-face conversation. And that was incredibly powerful. And I think for Incu, it would be fairly similar as well. The business came from bricks and mortar stores way before they had a e-com business. So they'd opened multiple stores before they had online, and they really had the opportunity to get to know their customers and understand who they were. I think, the founders of Incu are also just super talented and really good at what they do, and they pick amazing locations for their stores, and they just probably have a really great intuition and gut feeling of who their customer is, and they wanted to bring something unique to to the retail world. I think as I was on the journey with them, we spent time in stores. We also experienced shopping online ourselves. I think it's also understanding that, consumer reports that come out every year can be really insightful too. Some stuff obviously you need to take with a grain of salt, but I think one thing we were learning was consumers wanted things quicker. They wanted things easier. So it was, there's some really simple things to look at is what's your delivery options? How are you getting the product to consumers? If they need to return it, how easy is it? And I think that goes across all businesses. That's pretty straightforward, but it's also really important. And I feel like if you just don't have those options, you just don't stack up anymore because it's such a competitive industry. We can't compete with Amazon delivery, but
Yeah.
there are other things you can do. And I think, it also comes down to gut feeling. I remember when I first met the founders and the CEO, I talked to them about, click and collect options and same day delivery. And that wasn't available at that point, but it was understanding that, I was an Incu customer. I wanted to buy those brands that they had. And sometimes I wanted it really quickly because I needed it to go away or it was a last minute gift. And I actually drove and led the Uber delivery to our option for the business. And that was a really exciting project to lead and support the teams on. And, it did become something that was quite successful and, just having that option available for consumers where same day just wasn't enough and understanding that what our customers were spending on average per purchase, that sort of small additional cost for shipping wasn't really a huge thing for them. So it was just also understanding, the industry in general. But for Noni B, obviously we'd never do that. It's fast moving fashion and it's a older generation and it, they weren't necessarily tech savvy or online shoppers. They were probably in-store shoppers first. And that was also something to really understand was, the demographic for that customer was very different and they would still prefer to go in store, but if they couldn't get it in store they might shop online. Obviously as COVID hit they didn't really have that choice and they had to learn. I kind of laugh about this a little bit when I talk about it, and I talked about it a lot when we were going through COVID because my mum is that customer who hates shopping online. Like she'll send my sister and I links to the things that she wants, but she won't actually purchase it herself. She'll be like, is this a dodgy site? Does this look legit? Can you guys just buy it for me and I'll give you the money? And it's really funny because she's that customer that loves to go into stores. And even, when we talk about groceries and, you could get groceries online years ago, but she'd still prefer to go in store and push the trolley and take the 5 bags to the car instead of just do it all online, get it delivered to the front door. And then when we went through COVID, she was one of those customers that really struggled because she didn't like shopping online. So she found it really overwhelming, really confusing. And, being part of the Noni B group at that point was like, that's the age of our customers. I'm sure that there's a huge percentage of them feeling the same way. So it was a bit of an education journey, to be honest, about how do we make them feel comfortable? How do we make them feel confident that they can shop with us and, they're going to get what they want and the checkout is quite seamless and easy, and I think now we've got all the Shop Pay and the Apple Pay and all these fast payment checkout. That wasn't suitable for those brands because it wasn't suitable for that consumer. Whereas, when you look at the Incu customer, yeah, that's probably great because your details are saved and it's a younger audience and even if it's an older audience, they're probably used to online shopping.
Yeah.
So it's kind of identifying some of those really small details and just making sure that, you're tailoring your experience for that consumer. But yeah, I kind of always laugh about my mum because now she's an online shopper and now she does her groceries online. And we get less and less text messages about, can we help her buy something? But it took a while, and even now I think there's a little bit of doubt sometimes of, is this website legit? And, for people who are not online shoppers naturally or a little bit tech savvy, yeah, it can be hard to know.
Yeah.
And make sure they're not getting scammed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I see a lot too and advise a lot when, especially sort of newer e-commerce businesses coming through, that they don't have a lot of social proof. And the one thing I say is like, no one wants to think that they're the first person to ever purchase anything. So like that's how important social proof is to show that you're not a scam and, you haven't just arrived overnight and you're not someone in another country trying to do a dodgy deal. So that social proof is so important.
Yeah.
You sound a lot more patient than what I was during COVID. I think I actually, even after COVID, I did a LinkedIn post the other day just saying, one of the, I can't remember how I put it, but essentially I was trying to help my dad find like a pay-per-view event on KO and I didn't have the patience. I had to handball it to my brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. COVID taught a lot of that generation to kind of they had to unfortunately get with the times and kind of move in that way a little bit more. And one of the challenges that I've seen even with the businesses that I deal with from my agency is trying to hit those same numbers through through e-com as opposed to COVID and having to always do those kind of comparisons between prior year and the first year and a half. That was always pretty daunting because the traffic just never looked anywhere near likely, did it?
Yeah. It's definitely something I think we've all learned to adapt with along the way. And sometimes for some it's easier and it's not so daunting. But even now, coming from the online world, you're shown ads from other websites you've never been on before, and you kind of know the process of, okay, I'm going to check their social, I might check their LinkedIn. Do they actually have people that work there? Like we kind of intuitive know what to look for. But not everybody's like that. So yeah, it can be hard. But I think you nailed it as well when you talked about social proof. And that again goes to building a community and building a brand, is their voice can be really powerful for the consumer. Because if they're already following them or they've seen them somewhere, it's automatically put that trust in them to kind of go, okay, this is legit. This must be a great brand if they want to partner with them and want to work with them. And so it's just understanding how to, to work with your partners on that so that you can leverage it as well.
Yeah, exactly. 100% right. And and I think organic social has never been more important as well, because if a brand hasn't posted for a year or so, not that e-commerce brands will do that, or it's just not more mature ones, but you've got to keep posting your organic social. And it's, again, going back to that earlier conversation, organic social can be hard to kind of give a return on investment. But if you're not continuing to post and continuing to engage with your consumers, and as you mentioned off the top, building that community, social organic is just, I don't think it's ever been sort of more important than what it is right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think as we come into this, this world of AI and, content that can just be produced for us, like that's amazing, absolutely amazing. But it doesn't always serve the brand or the consumer. And I, talk about this quite a lot, but it still needs to have that human touch, because that connection is what keeps consumers coming back to a brand. So we need to be careful that we don't lose that. When we talk about organic social and organic content, it's so important, because whilst there's a need for AI to support, with certain things, it's really key for us to keep that authenticity within the brand. And what better way to do that than a human touch or human conversation? So I think that's where organic social can be really powerful and play a really great part for a brand. But it is time consuming, and like you said, you can't really track return on investment. It's a bit of a, you're kind of producing content you think is going to resonate with your community, and you need to update who you are and constantly remind, yourself and your teams about what's the message that you're trying to send, what's the message that you're trying to get out to consumers, and who are you trying to connect with? Because I think once we stop asking ourselves those questions, that's when we lose that authenticity, and that's when it just becomes content.
Yeah. And I could relate that exact summary of what you just said to SEO as well. Like, I do see, obviously in that game, I see a lot of content that is, being generated by AI. And that's the same question I have with that. Like, who is this serving? Like, it can help create some pages and some content and some blogs quicker. But ultimately, you need to put some human touch into this, because it's still easy to tell if something has been written by AI, in my opinion anyway. And if you're not putting your own authenticity onto it, then if you're only spending a minute to produce a page and you're expecting your ideal customer persona to read this for 4 or 5 minutes. I don't think that's a fair value exchange yet. Maybe AI will get there, but I think, yeah, with organic social and SEO, the more authentic you can be, the more time you put into actually serving the customer, I think you'll get rewarded for that on the way back. But maybe that's just me living in an ideal world.
I think you're spot on. I think it becomes, it really comes down to value over volume. We don't need to pump out 20 social posts a week, 20 blog posts a week. It is the value of the content. And so if that means that you only do one a week, then you only do one a week. But if that's, content through Instagram, through an email, through a blog, whatever it might be, if that, content really has value for your customer, it's going to give you such a higher return on investment, short term and long term, rather than just content coming out. So that's why, again, when I talked about before, it's like really important to ask ourselves in those roles, but our teams as well, what is the purpose of this? When we're doing a campaign or we're doing a blog, what is the purpose? Who are we trying to talk to? And what reaction do we want? Are we trying to create emotional reaction? Are we just talking product? Is it education? And that was definitely sort of one of the challenges with Rhino Rack as a business as well, because whilst it was, creating emotion, because it's, get out into nature and make space for adventure and, spend time with your family and friends and be outside, there was also a really big part that was, needed to be tailored around education, because it's not a product you can just buy off the shelf in a vehicle. It was a constant conversation we had in the business of, what does this fit my vehicle journey look like for a consumer? Because for me, if I needed to buy roof racks, I don't know what year my car is. I don't know what model it is. That's really key, because if you don't know that, you can't actually get the product. So, the conversation internally really became around, well, when we're getting content, are we telling the customer what they need to do? What do they need to know? How do they install it? If they don't want to install it themselves, where can they go to get it installed? So very different business to, to someone like Incu, where education wasn't as important, it didn't hold as much value. And so again, it's just asking that question of, what is the content that we're trying to create, and what are we trying to help? What's the message?
Yeah, fantastic. No, I really like some of the answers here in this podcast. Just, it all makes sense. It's wrapped beautifully around brand and community and adding value, and that, fair value exchange between brand and consumer or customer. That really kind of ties in beautifully. So well answered. Not that you needed my approval, but I got two more questions for you. So I'll start with, where do you see e-commerce going in 2025, and then maybe we can kind of roll that into brands that you look to as best practice, or some brands that you feel like are really nailing it at the moment. Where do you see e-commerce evolving to in 2025? If we do a podcast same day next year, what do you think we'll be talking about?
I think we'll be talking about customer loyalty. I think brands or retail in general has been probably a little bit lucky in some sense over the last few years, that consumer spending has changed and been quite reactive. So they haven't really had to rely on that brand, that community, that loyalty as much. I think that's where we're going to pivot. I think that will become so much more important. And I think when you go back, probably even 5 years or a little bit longer, before COVID, you look at a brand like Mecca, who are known for their loyalty program. Whenever you go to a conference or you're on a panel, you hear everyone talk about Mecca and their loyalty program. And they do. They're the best at it. They really are. But you also can't compete with them, and you can't play them. So that's also, really challenging for businesses, because you can't do it at the same scale and you can't follow the same method. So I think, like I said, I think businesses have been really lucky that consumer spending has been quite reactive over the last few years. As we kind of went into COVID, people were probably purchasing things they wouldn't necessarily have purchased before, because they were trying new things, or they were going camping for the first time. So they bought the tent for the first time, and 3 years later, they haven't used it again. I think now it's going to go back to consumers to a certain degree will always be led by price and convenience, absolutely, especially in the world that we're living in. But I think consumers will start to go back to shop with brands that they know and they trust. One, because they're going to get great service and they might pay a little bit more either for the retail price or a little bit more in shipping, but they know they're going to get a great experience. If it's not right, they know they're going to get a great experience trying to return it. So that loyalty is going to be really key. And some businesses do it really well. I won't sort of talk about the businesses, but we had an experience like that a couple of months ago where for the last few years, we've really wanted to upgrade our mattress and, how much do you spend? You can't always try them. So we bought 3 and purely with brands that we'd read reviews that had a great return experience because we knew you get the 90 days to try it. If you don't love it, you can return it. And for only one of those brands was that statement true. For the other 2,
Oh, really?
incredibly difficult to return. And it became this, nightmare of like, what did we get ourselves into? So I think being true to who you are as a brand is gonna be really key. And I think if you can't deliver on any of those things, even just one of those things, that's where you'll lose a consumer. I think they'll go somewhere else for a better experience. So I definitely think that's where it's going to pivot.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, brand loyalty is obviously, especially obviously when we're talking loyalty, you're talking returning customers. So they've already purchased from you. And I think the last time I had a look at statistically, I think returning customers sort of transact 4 times as often as new customers. Yeah, getting them back second, third, fourth time is obviously, super important and obviously keeps you a little bit more profitable as well if you can continue to nurture those customers rather than spending money to acquire new ones. Yeah, that's a really good takeaway for e-commerce businesses to be thinking about in 2025. What does that loyalty look like?
Yeah.
Are there any brands that you look to as best practice? Obviously, you found a couple that have had worst practice in the mattress space, but
won't name them.
No.
Everyone tries to do a good job. Look, I think Oz Hair and Beauty, I'm definitely going to shout out to them because I think they've matured so much over the last few years and they really do have a great online experience. Their delivery experience is great. If it's for whatever reason it's out of stock, your notification, your journey from that is amazing. You've got so many delivery options that really suit pretty much everybody's need. And they have a great product offering. I think it's a really nice experience to shop with them online. Mecca, obviously, they do a great job. And like I said before, from a loyalty perspective, they've really nailed it. And no one else does it like them, but it's also not really an option for other businesses to just copy them.
What makes them like, why do you, and they've been mentioned a couple of times on this podcast, what makes them, as probably every male is going to be asking the same question who listens, like what makes that loyalty process great if I'm not a customer of theirs? What are the key things? Is it sort of, from what I can understand, is a bit of gamification? Is it sort of delivering value? Is it transparency around the products actually work? Like, what is it particular about them?
I think it's the personalization.
Okay.
Either a digital experience or an in-store experience. Once you have a customer profile with them and you're going in store or shopping online, you are really showing products that relate to products you've bought in the past, or if you're looking by skin type or hair type or fragrance type. Once you continue to shop with them, you earn points, you get free samples every now and then, you get special gifts, you get invited to special events once you hit a certain tier. That I think they've just kind of really nailed understanding what their customer wants. And, I went in today actually and I'd hit that next level of my loyalty program. And so I had the option of like 3 kind of gifts and all of them are really great. And you're just like, yeah, I'm actually going to use that, as opposed to, it's probably a little outdated now, but some businesses probably still give you a lollipop in your packet. You're like, great, nice.
Yeah.
There's no true value for a consumer in that way. So when you think about how much does that actually cost the business to do, what is the consumer actually getting out of it? Another business that I'll call out is a small retail business in Melbourne actually, but it's called Clear Compound. And they are in the wellness and the beauty space. And I think what I've, along the journey of becoming a customer, they educate the customer really well. So they're sort of really supportive of brands that have clean ingredients, not necessarily completely organic, but that have clean ingredients and don't have the nasties that people don't want to use in their households anymore. They're really good at educating you on what they are. So for that reason, I'll choose to go back to them. They don't have a huge offering like Boz Hair and Beauty and things like that. They do have a great selection, and they're just really good at educating the consumer.
Okay. Where are they educating you, on the website or on EDMs or socials? Yeah.
I mean, all of those things, definitely social. They hold a lot of events as well. So you can buy tickets to come into an event to hear a beautician talk about a, specific new brand or product that's come into the industry and why it's, so beneficial, or what makes them stand out from other brands because of the ingredients they use. And that can be really hard. Even I think, when you look at cleaning products and Co, for example, they came out and wanted to give us an alternative to, I guess, more clean, ingredients and not the harmful chemicals that we, use around the house or in our washing, how sensitive our, skins can be and things like that. So I think they're also a brand that's done a really great piece on education.
Okay.
I think on the flip side, if you look at it from who's done really well with branding, July suitcases, everybody wants one. They're really cool. They've done a great job. They've done some great campaigns where they literally talk about how their suitcases can last, in any environment. And I think they had a 4x4 drive over at Cal. So they do it really well from a branding perspective because they've made it look cool. They've made you want to walk into the airport with a July suitcase. And you can get the knockoffs, of course, everywhere, but it's not the same. And I think, when you get to a point where consumers want to come to you for the real product because, it makes them feel special, they're the ones that want to roll them into the airport, you've done a good job. I think they do that really, really well. So yeah, there's different ways I think that brands can be really successful in e-com. And sometimes, it's through community, sometimes it's through brands, sometimes it's through education around the products. So yeah.
Yeah. July got me as well. As I said, I traveled to Italy earlier and I thought there's only one product for me. And I had Zoe on. Zoe was on episode 4 whilst we were still in lockdown, and just loved hearing about her and her story and how passionate she was about July even back then. And so to follow them, and then obviously got the Olympic team and they got some good collaborations and stuff. So, a great story. And as well as going to a pop-up location in Chadstone, that same seamless kind of experience on the website. So yeah, that's a good shout as well. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. There's some great answers there. It's really, really solid around that sort of brand loyalty, community, and just how it can kind of that unified e-commerce retail approach. So I really, really appreciate you giving us your time and your insights, and no problems, and have a good rest of the year. And looking forward to seeing what lays ahead for you in 2025.
Yeah, same. I think that's probably the really exciting part is, getting to a point in your career where you actually feel really comfortable with the unknown, and you're like, I'm on a new journey and, in so many different ways and on different levels. And it's super exciting to now, having had the experience of working with some really amazing brands, is how can I, use those skills to support brands in the future, and how do I help them grow? So yeah, the door's open. It feels really awesome.
Perfect. I'm sure there'll be a line up out the door, especially after hearing this podcast.
All right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for your time.